I'm going to continue off where I left off last, which was with this Super Mario Brothers DSI XL. That came to me with a broken top screen and an error has occurred on boot up as well as a add charge port. Change the charge port. It actually looks really good, all considering I haven't done that in a long time and completely forgot my procedure. Nice and flush, sticking out far enough. The silk screen is a little burnt, but that carries no impact on the performance of the port. It doesn't damage it. A little burn. But I was able to get it to where it sits nice and flush, as it should. And the charger fits nice and well. Fully seats. I tested it with the power board and it makes full connection. And aside from verifying the charge port, I also replaced the top screen lens off screen. I think the only thing that's bothering me is there's just one speck of dust underneath it, but other than that, this top screen lens is pretty good shape. A lot of really small scratches, but nothing you see when the console's on. So picking up where I last left off would be putting the border on bottom screen, or putting the red bezel on. I believe that is all I need to do before I can start going through testing. Let me go grab a red These bezels are thankfully very easy to install. I don't have to deal with a physical screen through it. I don't have to worry about dust getting underneath it like I do with the top screen lens. I need to grab some more IPA. Okay, so looking at this bezel, just sort of looking for dirt, debris around there's this little lip around the edge of the bezel. Looks good. Already taken the adhesive off of it from OEM. Add screen. Quickly wipe off the parts of the screen that's going to get the adhesive. Not so worried about like this profile in that later. I'll be doing a lot of handling with it when I go through testing. That's good. Now I grab my double-sided tape. Just run a line of tape on each side. Let me make sure my tweezers are clean from handling that charge port, that solder flux. I did a pretty good job yesterday. And when I bought this stuff, I didn't expect to be using it as much as I did. Gone through quite a bit of this roll. I have to buy more. And my only complaint about this stuff is it's a pain to take off if I make a mistake. Or if I put this bezel on a bottom screen that ends up failing on me. Either due to me not testing the bottom screen, or goes wrong, or I don't. Actually, recently it was because I didn't even really notice that screens had different color temperatures. That's when I was getting into problems like, well, I have this white console with screens that look completely different. I had to take the bottom screen out of that white console and change the bezel to a color with a top screen that matched. Probably not a factor I was. Okay. Keep along the bezel. Now to remove the back side of this double tape. Okay. Now the alignment of the screen in this bezel is very important. It's all, everything is cut out to be perfect. If you place the bezel in, it will sort of slot into its little groove that it has in the bottom shell. And similar to that, this bottom screen only goes in one way. Try and get it to where it'll sit in exactly in its groove. What I do is I put the bottom one in first because it has this little metal lip. And just lay down. I'll usually give it a little press. I'll check it really fast. It looks like it went in good. Alright. Grab some rubbing alcohol and hit all of my connectors again because I've been handling all of this stuff. Got a second to dry. I'll look at the motherboard one more time. Make sure it looks good. I got off all of that solder flux. Yeah, I'm really liking how these flanking legs look when I had them flush with the port. I don't remember having to do that, but I still have those motherboards kicking around with repaired ports, so I can re-inspect them. Checking the inside of this LCD plug. Not only did I get some Q-tip fuzzy in it, sometimes flux will collect in it, which hopefully didn't. Because getting flux out of that is kind of difficult. And just making sure there's no just random spots of flux I didn't expect. Good. So this was the area I cleaned earlier. Aside from a little bit of scorching, it's good to go in. Cables are still routed in. The top screen in. And all the ribbons out of the way so I can motherboard in completely. Oh, microphone go. R. Just gonna go ahead and plug everything in because I will assume everything is good. Put in that Wi-Fi antenna routed correctly. Power connector. Little channel. And buttons. Display for the bottom screen. Backlight. Now this digitizer might be a bit of a pain. Usually these new digitizer ribbons aren't curled. You have to sort of introduce a curl to them so they'll sit and will go into the slot. OEM ones are just so conditioned to be curled. Being extra careful. Going at the speed that it wants to go. We'll give it to the third-party cables. They're pretty strong. Not really worried about damaging it. Huh. I am noticing that the Wi-Fi antenna is kind of pushing up on the Wi-Fi card. To sort of reorient it to see if I can reduce that stress. Either way, the case will push down on it. Okay. Go ahead and put the screws back in. The medium black screws on the left-hand side of the board. These black screws are the same length as the top screen screws. The exact same. Black on the bottom. Have all these really tiny silver screws. One goes right here. That one might be stripped a little, but not important. Quickly hit the shoulder button connectors with a little bit of IPA. This is where 99 would come in handy. I have to aggressively dry it as much as I am. Okay. Buttons in. I won't put any screws in on the back shell quite yet. It does secure together with these plastic clips. Both a blessing and a curse. Alright. Grab the battery. I'll just go ahead and secure it down a little with the battery cover, so the battery doesn't necessarily pop out on me. Okay. Now I can get on to testing. I do want to verify the screen colors again. Yeah, I would say the top screen is just a touch bluer. You can almost kind of see it in the camera. It's like very mild. Of course, there's going to be that artifacting the screen due to just recording an LCD. So when I flash it white, kind of see that this top screen is just a touch bluer. This screen almost looks a little yellower. Screen's not yellowed. I'm thinking this is sort of the default color that Nintendo goes for. But I think the thing about it is if you can vaguely tell on a white screen, like I really have to look at it, and I've looked at a lot of these. If you can only really vaguely tell, you're not going to see it when you're playing a game. So I'm not too worried about it. There are going to be differences where like, holy cow, like this top screen is very blue compared to the bottom, but I would say this is mild enough that I wouldn't care. So let me go over sort of my testing protocol. I do this twice. Basically, I'll put the console together, make sure it turns on, and like there's nothing obviously wrong. I'll put it in a little shelf over here for first testing or continued testing, which then I would wait and I'd pick a day when I'm feeling up to it, and then I would go through the testing procedure I'm about to go through, which then from there would go to final testing, which is when I would put the screen protectors on, wipe this down, and get it prepped for sale. So for the assessment, which I'll definitely be following my assessment form here, have it off to the side, I'm just going to test all of the technical aspects. So motherboard and power board, obviously, works. Console turns on. So then next is tactile buttons, which I'll go to put in my R4 and go down to diagnose.se. The button tester. Press each button about 5 times. Shoulder buttons are especially important. Those tend to fail pretty easily. But they are responding just fine. They feel good. They're responding. There's no like hitching or a button press where it's not responding. I'm happy with that. Oh. Volume button works. You can tell by me bringing down and bringing up the brightness. So, and then I'll also test the microphone, which I do more in-depth testing where I just go into the sound app and make a noise, but you can tell here it's tell that the microphone is responding to me tapping the mic. That's a good indicator, it works. There's really not much I do there. As far as diagnose SE, that's all I do there. This next test is touchscreen. So I'll go to DS Crater. I actually don't know how to pronounce. And I like this app over any of the default DS apps because it will give you the entire bottom screen to work with. When you have a bad touchscreen, sometimes there'll be a portion on the side of the screen that's bad, so you'll draw a straight line and then it will just like do like a weird pattern around the bad part. So in this case, okay, you can tell here how it's like just like a centimeter or two above the bottom. That means I need to get this touchscreen calibrated. I didn't calibrate it when I put the new touchscreen digitizer on. That I can easily do either from the settings, or if I remember correctly, it's RL start and select. When you power on the console, it'll go to a touchscreen calibrator. If your touchscreen's bad, you can't navigate the settings menu. Power off, okay. Now it should be good. Go back to my touchscreen tester. Now when I draw my box, it goes all the way to the bottom of the touchscreen. As I do my little twirls here, I don't see any jags or anything that would suggest that the touchscreen's bad. So it goes all the way around. It is a little more like the touch range of it is more like bottom right-ish centered, but really, I don't think you're going to notice that when you're actually playing a game. It's within the touch area. So my next is speaker, mic, and headphone jack, which all I do for the headphone jack is I just plug in a set of headphones and just listen to it. I'm not going to do that right now. That's a little complicated for my setup. Cameras. They'll work. Tested those before I put them in the top screen, so I wouldn't have to completely disassemble this thing again. I always check it. Charge port. Okay. For my charge port, I suppose I can turn the lights back on. What I do is I'll stick in the charger, solid orange light, and then I'll just gently wiggle it around. Pull it out, back in, solid red light. As I'm sort of moving it around, which this charge port doesn't have much play at all, which is kind of nice, because OEM chargers will have a bit of play. You can kind of move them around. And usually what that will do is you'll find a spot where the charge light will turn off if you're holding it. In that case, I either have to resolder the charge port back to the board, or maybe the charge port is broken and I have to replace it. This charge port I have no problems with. Then next is game card and SD card slot. I'll do the SD card slot right now. Game card slot, I don't see a reason why it doesn't work. It reads my S4 card, my R4 card just fine. For my SD card, this is sort of my loaded SD card that has several different things on it if I need it. Go in the DSI sounds. Play with my music. And then Gorilla's Feel Good Inc. Yeah, and it's playing just fine. So if it can read a song off my SD card, I have no reason to believe it doesn't work. If I really wanted to, I do have Flipnote Lenny loaded up on here that I could load Twilight Menu off of, but I figure if it can read a song, it can. There's no reason for me to further test. So for the card slot, I throw sort of a pile of shovelware games at it. There's one game in here that has a very troublesome time reading on some consoles. We'll see. Ooh. Okay, second click worked, so I might need to clean this port. This one's not reading at all. Okay, I'm getting no life from that one. Here, this next one is the one that troublesome reading. Yep. I'm gonna clean that port. Oh, there it is. So usually what I would do is load up one of those cards with IPA. I have been testing this cart, which is just a card I pulled apart and stuffed a paper towel in. I don't know if it actually works, but I would like to make something similar with a microfiber cloth. As I get these shovelware games in, all these games I've gotten just via consoles, just somebody's like, hey, I don't want this shovelware. Console off. I loaded up this card, which is just again a cart with a paper towel stuffed in it. Click it in a few times. I'm guessing that this is only like my second or third time using this. I think I just need something more rigid when cleaning. But the intention is to try and get like if there's anything gross on it, so I'm not damaging these carts more than I need to. But what I'll do is this card, load that pin up until they're just dripping wet with IPA. Just click it in and out a few times. Sometimes the IPA interrupts the mechanism that it's in there, but once it dries, meaning when you click it in, it might not click out. I'd have to kind of help the card out. Q-tip. Wipe these pins off. And nice and saturated again. Now the thing about this thing that I'm doing is it might work for a little while, whether any remnant IPA or water on the pins makes better contact with the cards, but once that dries, if the problem isn't fixed, I haven't quite troubleshooted as to what that might mean. It could be that a pin is broken, or I'm guessing that there's possibly a solder issue with the pin on the board. Maybe the solder joint is cracked. We'll see here in a bit. That twice. Okay. Just gonna go through all these cards again. Just order. Rolled 3, pops up. Problem. Crafting Mama took a second, popped up with no problem. This card is still having problems. There it is. Okay, I'll set that one aside again. That one took 2 clicks again. Okay, came up with no problem. Here's the difficult one. Cool. Usually when I say it's the difficult one, is if it can read this, it can read anything, really. I don't know what's specifically damaged about this cart that makes it harder to read, but the pins are having a problem. This card won't read. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a cart that does read pretty good. Let's do the Dog Whisperer. There's another test I need to do. So what I need to do is test to see if the pins are actually cleaned. And it's hard. Because there is a certain problem that will come up of if you bump the game card just a little bit while it's in its slot, it'll disconnect. Usually this manifests on if you accidentally whack the console and it shuts off, game is disconnected. What I'll do is just sort of put a little pressure on the card and just wiggle it back and forth in the slot. You can see it. Game card doesn't disappear. If the pins were still dirty, when I shift it over to the right, the game card would disappear. I'm not putting pressure enough to trigger the mechanism, but just enough to kind of shift it in the port. And then a more violent test is me sort of slapping the back of the console, like right to the right side of the battery, about right here. I'm just kind of giving it a thud with my palm. As you see, the game doesn't disappear. So I would say that's good. I might need to clean it some more just to make sure that these carts are coming up. This could just be simply software, like I'm just stressing the console out by putting in so many carts. But it is reading my difficult cart. But again, like I said, because I just recently cleaned it, any water or remaining alcohol might be making better contact than what would be happening if it were actually dry. So that's definitely going to be something I'll have to catch in final testing. And I need to check the Wi-Fi later because the phone that I use to connect this to Wi-Fi currently being used as my camera, because I can set my Wi-Fi hotspot on my phone, open security, and just to see if it connects at all. I have no reason to believe it won't. Version 1.4.5U. And then all I have remaining, aside from cleaning and screen protectors, is I need to do a battery test. So let me prepare my little document that I keep with these consoles. Red Super Mario Brothers. Four 450. 4.5U. Battery test. This is just a loose piece of paper that I keep with my consoles. Usually I do this when I'm putting them together and I don't quite have my online documentation set. I did neglect to do. When I put these consoles together, I will make a file folder of the console and then I'll have a separate document for its motherboard just to keep track of any repairs that I did, which in this case I did. I did not grab the motherboard number because it will not be in my system, because this is the same motherboard from the console I took apart. Thankfully, did not screw the back on. So I can just quickly pop the plastic tension clips, pin it up like so, grab the serial number right here. In this case is 15X06012 U01B6 H3 negative A31. Then US region 1.4.5 software version. No known issues. Fixed. Charge port replaced. And the bottom screen has a new digitizer. technically isn't correct because I didn't change the digitizer, I just included a screen with a new digitizer. But as far as anybody is concerned, it could be the same screen just with a new digitizer. I don't think it really. This is that's documentation, the one I just made on my computer. I'll have reference when I make the eBay posting. I'll quickly go over the battery test, what I do for that. Back installed. Once I'm done with that, I'll actually put this. You know what? Since I'm back here, I'll just go ahead and put these screws back in. Now for a black bottom shell, the silver screws go on the I'm really feeling these strip screws. My screwdriver jumped on that one. Happens when you don't use the right size screwdriver. I'm through on camera. Not around it, I can still grab it, but these don't go in super tight. My screwdriver was starting to jump there at the end. The only issue is I would happily replace those, but you can't get screws anymore. I don't think you ever could. They just simply don't exist. And currently, I don't really have any means of sourcing them. I do want to see if there's any screw similarities between other DS models, but I don't have other DS models to test that I'm willing to actually strip down to component level. I am trying to source a 3DS and new 3DS, but they're very expensive on the secondhand market, especially for something as simple as I just want to measure the screws on it. Black screws, small black screw, silver, 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 silver. Gonna look around the shell just to see how it fit, the fitment of it. Usually I have to kind of encourage these clips. Clip back in. I did at that point. I think I need to clean this L button a little better. Kind of see there's a little bit of grody on it. That's easy enough. That little groove. Okay. Battery test. I will put my R4 card back in. Now, I mentioned in the last video how there's going to be compatibility issues with R4 cards. I have this ACE card, too, which I'll show you. Since this version, this DSI has the latest version of software, that'll happen. The ACE card doesn't work on current hardware. I will double check. The SD card will sometimes pop out and create difficulties. Yep. So that will occur if the software on the, or if the R4 card just simply isn't compatible with newer software. Which is unfortunate. I do have consoles that will work on, but for the time being, I just have to use this sort of generic one that I bought off of Amazon. That works just fine, actually. All I need it for is testing software. I don't play games off of it. So for the battery test, show you the software that I have. Yes, battery timer. So what I will do is do max brightness, max sound, and then I will start the battery test. I do that with the headphones plugged in so I don't hear the same song looping for 4 hours. Press A. And what the software claims to do is simulate a DS game playing. There'll be the timer that goes down here, right? Start time, end time, which doesn't matter because the system has been wiped and everything is default. So then once it'll completely drain the battery. I'll simulate that happening. Nice. I'll get my result by going back into the battery tester. Then you press B. In this case, kind of gave me a nothing response, but it will show me the hours and minutes. I think it doesn't count seconds, so since I didn't reach a minute, it's just saying 0 seconds. But usually these batteries have been going for about 3 to 4.5 hours, or like 3.5 to 4.5 hours. And naturally, before I do this battery test, I charge the battery full. I do that on my I have a charge dock over here that I just slot them in. Last but not least, in the top screen screw. These screws are mildly unimportant. Yeah, this top screen lens went in pretty good. You'll probably be able to see that speck of dust that's right underneath that lens. I'll try to get it, but I can't see it when the console's on. There's sort of like a point to where I just don't want to be taking these lenses or the digitizers off to get one speck of dust. Because I don't work in the cleanest environment, so more specks of dust will get under there, and I could just be fighting a losing battle for hours, and it could end up to the point to where I accidentally smudge top screen, and it just becomes a mess. So I might leave it. I might fix it. I'll just kind of see how I feel when I get down to final testing. And of course, when I do the final testing, usually right after I'm done, I'll put the screen or the screw covers in. That's something I save till absolutely last. That's usually literally the last thing I do before I start taking product pictures. But I guess one thing I didn't do, which is what you usually see in my product videos, is my actual assessment of the console. So this will not be what's reflected when I actually put this console for sale, but I will do a sort of rundown of what I think of the console right now. Now I am going to change this to a 5-point scale instead of a 4-point. I think that I just need to expand this a little better, so this will be probably one of the last times I use this document, or one of the last 2 times. I only have 2 left. So, physical condition of the shell. I didn't wipe this down beforehand, but this top screen isn't, or this top glossy piece is actually in really good shape. There are light scratches all over it. That's just the problem of it being glossy. And of course, there's just a lot of smudges on it from me handling it with wipe off with distilled water and a rag. What's most concerning is there's like there's these pry marks around the top shell. I really don't know where these came from. So that's really concerning. Like, it doesn't look like actual pry marks. I don't know how that happened. And then there's discoloring around the hinges. They're just the corners just being rubbed away. Be it somebody shoving it in their pockets or case or whatever. Same sort of markings around the LED diffuser. And then just a bunch of little nicks around the edges of the top screen. Other than the L button being a little dirty, kind of a little nick right there. The L button has some damage on it. With the R, I pick these buttons out because they match they roughly match the condition of the bottom shell. Which bottom shell is pretty alright. There's like a couple marks here and there, but nothing like crazy. Stuff might actually come off with. Not really. A little nick right there. There are some marks around the screen. And then there's discoloration around the D-pad. I'm guessing that's just from friction. Just fingers and finger oils just rubbing away. Which is kind of sad to see because I'd like these to be just a nice slab of red, but kind of nice to see that, like, hey, console, or this shell rather, had some good love on it. It was played. Somebody really had a good time with it, and I like seeing that. There's a patch down there. What would I give this? I would probably give it. This really bothers me. It's not structural, but like it's pretty significant damage. And there's really nothing I can do about that. If it wasn't for this, I would probably give it a very good. I might end up just opting for good because there is damage around these hinges, or discoloration. I guess damage is probably too dramatic of a word. So I'd probably give it a good. Physical condition of the hardware, which are all the buttons. Probably a very good. Buttons other than the shoulder buttons are good. I don't see any problems with them. The physical condition of the screens. This is a new digitizer, and this top screen has very light scratches on it. I don't know if those scratches will come through. Not really. It's just a bunch of really light hair scratches on it. This digitizer is brand new. Once I wipe off all that smudges, it should be really clear. All those lines you see are just from my stylus. Should wipe off pretty. Yeah, that'll be pretty new. I would probably give it a very good. Just for the scratches on the top screen. And then for the actual screens, I would probably also give a very good, just noting that the top screen is more blue. Oh, you can actually kind of see it pretty good on this picture. I would say that in real life, you have to really like, I don't think it's something you would notice if you turn this on. I guess it's really hard for me to be objective about it because I've seen so many of these. But this is a pretty good representation of what it does look like. The top screen is a touch bluer than the bottom. I don't think it's as crazy. It's something like I can't even see it on this screen. Like if I look at the margins of this, kinda can tell that like yeah, it's still a little bluer, but it's all just purely what you want out of a console. Would this bother me? Not at all. Absolutely not. Like, let me load up Crafting Mama. And then it's just one of those. Oh. Not a good example. That means that card slot will just need some more cleaning. Anyway, back to that point I was trying to make. Can you tell me that the top screen is more blue than the bottom? Because right now, I sure can't tell. It's just one of those things. Once you start playing games, it becomes less of an issue. That's purely up to the opinion of whomever is looking to buy this. So that's the documentation for it. Get this full charged battery tester and put it in my area for final testing. I think this console turned out pretty good, because a lot of my Super Mario Bros. Top glossy pieces are just really, really scratched up. I think I have one that's just in really rough shape, unfortunately. I don't know what happened to it. I still haven't decided whether or not I want to try and sell it. So not only are the lenses really hard to find, but the... Hello. Right there. That later. Not only are the lenses for these consoles impossible to find, these glossy pieces are highly consumable, it seems. I have a lot of them that are just in rough shape. Whether or not I actually try to sell these, I don't know. The PAL version. Anyway, that's a problem for later. Again, those are waiting for top screen lenses if I ever find any more good red ones. I'm glad I was able to put this one together. It's one of the few I can.